Okay, today we're going to talk about some goals of today's session is kind of to review how to define critical roles and we're going to look a little bit about how tasks management and assignments are done in OpenAir and how that could potentially feed into your resource planning. How to better identify talent using the different roles and some of the features inside of the system. We'll talk a little bit about scheduling resources, but also we'll talk about some of the different ways you can view the data inside of OpenAir to get information and validate accuracy. And then lastly, we'll talk about some reports that we'll give you and some views that are really helpful to kind of make some good decisions and maybe align yourself to kind of be more, increase your utilization or increase your knowledge base of your current workforce. So there's a few fundamental parts of OpenAir that are critical that have to be set up correctly for a lot of this to happen. First and foremost, we've last couple of weeks or last couple of webinars, we've talked about the benefit of using generic resources and job codes. So having those job codes and generics set up correctly under the resource settings is really a critical part of an overall methodology for managing projects as well as managing resource planning. So if you are able to get those set up, and then a lot of customers of ours, including ourselves, we'll then use templates to have a start of a building of a project. And within those templates, we'll have multiple phases and tasks. And then within each task, we go in and we can have placeholder resources inside of our tasks. And this is really beneficial. And then we can also embed hours for each resource if you're doing hours at the assignment level, or you can do hours at the task level as well. There's pros and cons of both approaches here. But if you're able to do it at the resource level, there's a benefit that we've been seeing more and more often. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But if you look at the actual task in the next screen here, you'll notice there's some dates on the task assignment that are not standard. So these are custom fields that we created. And the benefit of these custom fields is, within a task, there's an overall start and an overall end. But then you could have a project manager, you could have an architect, you could have other roles on the same task. And they may not all follow the same date logic that's within the task. If they can follow the same date logic, that's great. More than not, we see it doesn't follow the same logic. So for those scenarios, and we've been creating some custom fields at the task assignment. And then, so the way that this has been working for some customers is they'll create the project from a template. Project manager gets assigned to the project. He starts to engage with the customer, starts to update the project plan. What are my start and end dates for the different tasks and assignments, the types of resources I'm going to need for a particular project, validating the template structure, it doesn't need to be modified, and also validating the hours inside the project plan are valid based on what's being communicated with the customer and what's also in the statement of work. And so once the project manager creates those, all that data inside that project plan, now the next step is they need resources for their plan. And if the project manager is not double duty as the resource manager, generally then they will need to create a request of some sort so that the resource managers can start to align the project task assignments generics with named users. So there's a couple of ways we've been seeing this happen. There is an old switch that is available that actually will put a button on the task screen under the list view, and it will actually create a booking from a task assignment. It'll copy the start and end date of the task, not these custom fields, and it'll pull over the hours planned at the assignment level. The downside of that setting is it does require you to use booking approvals. So it's not a booking approvals is another switch that's available and think of it as a timesheet, right? Someone creates a booking, it's in an open. When they're ready to submit it, it goes through a submission process, goes through a manager for approval, and then before they approve it, they go and swap the resources for named and then approve it. And so it's a formal, kind of a more formalized request and fulfillment process around the resource management. So you have to use that feature to use the out-of-the-box switch that I mentioned earlier. And so a lot of customers, that's overkill for what they're trying to achieve. Although, you know, in certain circumstances, it certainly is not a good approach. More common, though, we see where the customer doesn't want to go through a formal approval process. And so what we've done recently is we've been creating some customizations inside of OpenAir where we create a checkbox or some sort of a field on the project when the project manager is ready to request resources. And then we have a scheduled event script that runs through, and it generates all these project task assignments and then auto creates those as requested bookings in the resource module. And so the benefit here is you don't have to double dip and recreate the initial plan inside the resource module after it's already been created in the project. So this could be a nice little way to kind of add a little automation, less double entry, and kind of create a little more seamless process between the initial project setup and the request for resources. Once you do have those requested resources inside of the resource module, then the resource manager can start to source who's going to be available, who are good fits. So one thing I don't think a lot of customers are aware of or use, but one option is you can do a job code search. So if you have job codes unique to each individual, and also job codes are also associated to the generic resources, you could go through, in this example, I needed 2 engineers on my project, or I needed an engineer over multiple dates. And you can go in then and do the search, and it'll pull up all of the engineers in the system and show you their availability based on the dates inside of the booking. And so this is a quick and easy way to be able to say, okay, I need an engineer who's available. Looks like Trey is available some weeks, but Richard might be my best bet because he's got total availability. So if I wanted to go through, I could just go in and swap Richard for both engineers here inside of the resource module. So this is one quick way to be able to use job codes and be able to substitute resources. Another tool that I use a lot, and I find customers don't use it a lot as much as I think it could be used, is the booking chart. And I want to spend a few minutes on this because I feel like it's an underutilized tool for viewing resources. And I think a lot of it has to do with folks just don't set it up correctly. So I'm actually going to go into OpenAir. Within the chart settings, being able to have the time period on the chart is a real step saver here. Also, being able to hard code what type of chart you're looking. Generally, I always pick the booking time and booking type one, and then I hide the rest because I don't generally toggle between the different types of chart. This chart gives me everything I'm looking for. Within the resource limitations, by enabling this advanced filtering, this basically is what gives you the ability to then see those advanced filters over top the chart and be able to customize those and use those to filter in different departments, different time periods, etc. So that becomes really useful. Generally, I'm looking at the calendar, and then obviously you can color code the chart from different booking types. One little tip and trick that I recommend is you'll notice available, will show on the chart, and I like white is available. To me, it sticks out as someone's not scheduled, but white is not an option in the color code. So the hex code for white is FFFFFF, so it's 6 Fs. If you type in 6 Fs and hit enter, you will get the white as your hex code, and then obviously I want to use the larger bar. And then so if you have these settings set up, to me the chart becomes much more usable than it would otherwise. And so now I can briefly look at the chart. I can see who's scheduled, who's got availability, who's partial scheduled. I can see, it tells me a really good story who's overscheduled. And obviously from here, you can drill down into the details as long as you're looking at a daily view of the chart. So let's go back into the presentation. So the next view that we use for looking for available resources is another one is the resource planner. So this view has got some good options as well. You get the drag and drop functionality, as well as you get the ability to see it by color coded as well. And then you quickly see percentage as well. And then from this view, the nice thing is you can actually drill down into the details as well. Let me pull that up real quick. And you'll notice here in the planner view, I can hide all of my details and just see it at a summary level. And then I can kind of see across, who's got availability. This is looking at it weekly. Back in 2018, I can see where people are overscheduled or underscheduled. If I want to drill into the details here, I can go in, and again, there's the ability to extend a booking or to move a booking. So you can start to, use the drag and drop. You can also just come in here and inline edit the start and end dates as well. So there's a lot of interaction with this tool that you don't have in some of the other views. The other nice thing about this planner is the ability to kind of reverse the view and use it by a client option. So if I come in here and look at a client, I can look at a project, and then I can see what my kind of a planner for resourcing. Think of it like a Gantt view for resources, which is nice. You cannot edit it from here though. You have to edit it from the resource view. So the planner is another really good way to come in and look at the data sets. So we need to be able to also look for resources inside the system, and you may need to get a little more granular than just the knowledge of what job code someone is. You may need to be able to look at a level deeper, what types of technology they may have, or some other more softer skills, who speaks a different language, or if that's important to you. So there's multiple ways you can, look in the system to kind of quickly find, resources, right? There's a quick view. The quick view will basically allow you to quickly search for different profile sets. So if you've built out your technologies, or you've got a language profile or other profiles, you can then go in and say, okay, I'm looking for someone with this skill set, with this potential, this attribute. And then it can just, you can look at it based on availability if you're using the custom view as well. And so that can be really helpful, saying who's available with this skill across these time periods, and even for this amount of hours. So even if someone might be 50% booked or 50% available, then you can still see those resources available to you for consideration as you're looking to staff your project. So using the profile, we always recommend that if customers going to use the profile feature inside of OpenAir, use it, make sure you use it in a way that it is manageable, and that you're getting the right level of granularity and not overcook the profile, because if you overcook it, you're not maintaining it, and it becomes too much to manage. The data will get stale, and this will become not very useful. So it's important to have the right balance inside the profiles to leverage the benefit of that and be able to quickly search for the right resources. If you do have the profile, the advanced resource search is really another good way to do that, and it does give you a more user-friendly option, I'll say. Sorry, not too far. So let me jump in real quick. So I'm going to come into resourcing and advanced resource search. So here you can actually create a search and name it so that you can use it. You can determine, are you looking for generic resources, or even if you're looking for inactive resources. Maybe you have contractors that come and go and you're inactivating them when they're not working for you, but you can certainly store a search ability to search their profile. You can use hourly cost as one of the profile options. You can also look at availability as well, based on their bookings or availability despite their bookings, or show anyone who's unavailable. So that might, if your search comes up empty, maybe you want to show unavailable resources to see who's matches it but just not available, so you can start horse trading resources. You know, hopefully you're all using entity tags, which are a really great way to filter reports by different tags assigned to a user. So, you know, whether they're employed, between what dates, and being able to only pull those sub-level of details. And if you're using a hierarchy within your resources, you can also search the hierarchy. On the skills and experience, so here you can come in and start to add the details. So in this case, we have language, technology, and user state. And then if I could come in here and say, okay, I need someone who knows Del Boomi. And you'll notice as I'm clicking through, it's going to start to give me how many resources match my search. And so I can start to drill down into here. And then once I'm done with my qualifications, I can do my search. So, you know, this is another really nice way to be able to, and if I want to make this required, it will limit the, you know, see there I have no resources by, you know, the head Saligo 10 years of experience, where that's a required field. So you can determine if the profile element is really required or not, and you can use that to be able to determine and be able to count how many resources are coming up. So this is another good option. And then another, I think, option, if you have all this set up correctly, that you may want to say, I need to see Larry versus Jim versus Amy, and be able to see what the difference is. And so this is another way, the compare view. You can prepare your compare table by adding or removing resources based on your findings, and then be able to compare those to see who's got what skill set, who's got what availability. And this is another nice view to be able to find that right match for your project. Once you've found the right match, you can then go in and start to convert your, you know, generic bookings to named bookings. So I can start to say my engineer is going to be, and et cetera. And then from a project manager, they have a way to come in and say, okay, I can see who's been now scheduled to my project. So let me jump back into OpenAir real quick. And within my project, this is managed at a stage level, but if you have this set up inside your project plan at a team level, you can see who's on the project. So here I can see generics are on the project, but then as the generics, as they're starting to book named resources, you'll start to see those show up in this list as well. And then from there, you can say, oh, I can see that Sam or Trey has been assigned as my engineer. So now I can go in and say my engineer is Trey. I'm going to go ahead and, replace engineer with Trey on all the tasks where my engineer is scheduled. So it's a really nice way to be able to go through and swap the, once you've been told who your resource is going to be, to go in and then do a bulk update of all those resources to convert them to named resources. So we'll talk about a few key reports that we use here at TopStep on a daily basis, and then we'll wrap up. So utilization report, this is obviously utilization is key. In this case, we're actually not looking at percentages. I'm actually looking at hours that are booked by resource. And so we review this report every week. We look at our resources. We look at the projects they're booked to. We're also looking, obviously, for availability. We're looking for folks that are overscheduled. So you can see, for those of you who knew Jody, that was a pretty common event, her being overscheduled. And you can also see where we have some underschedules here. And again, this is color-coded inside the report. And you can totally customize, how you want the colors to show up in this report. But obviously, being able to review this report and drill down into the details is something that's really powerful, and everyone should be kind of looking at this on a weekly basis. A lot of questions we get is, well, Ron, how do I manage bench, right? Because if let's say there's a resource not booked at all, they're not showing up in this report, and then they start to fall off the reports, and then they become forgotten. So OpenAir doesn't do you can't report on data that's not there, so you have to get creative. And there is a way to do this. There is a value called available base work schedule hours for booking. And so what this does is it kind of gives you, it looks at the base work schedule, and then it calculates how much availability do folks have. So you'll notice on the previous page, Trey was booked for 0.07 hours here. But if I turn this around and say, show me availability, he's got 39.93 hours available for these weeks. So it's kind of the inverse of the previous report, but the benefit of this one is you can quickly see and color code it again, who's got hours available to be booked. But more importantly, you can see if someone's not booked, which will give you, will show as a 40-hour availability in this report. So that way you pick up those bench resources and they're visible in this report for taking action on. Time analysis is something we do a lot, and you can use task types inside your tasks or time types to code hours you're entering into the system. We're constantly looking at how much non-billable hours are we spending versus billable hours versus other categories you can define, productive, non-productive, etc. And so you can obviously, once you build those custom calculations, you can add those to reports so we can see, what is our base work schedule hours, how many billable hours, what are the non-bill. And we actually have bonus reports that we use, and we have accredited hours, which is a custom calc that we use for mentoring and other items that we bundle in, and then we come up with our overall bonus hours calculation for calculating utilization bonuses. So this is something we do internally, but it's also really powerful because you can kind of really start to see, where people are spending their time, what categories are they spending their time, and start to keep monitoring on that. And then lastly, if you do become, through these tough pandemic times, you start to get availability, maybe more bench than you're normally used to. It's a good time to start analyzing your team and say, where do we have opportunity for growth improvement? Where do we have folks that might be able to, add more skills so that when the green light does come, the economy picks up, we have more bandwidth to take on, and we're not burdening the same resources with the same, project fit. So expand your profiles across multiple resources, be better ready to take on upcoming work down the way. So being able to run reports, looking at profiles and comparing where folks have gaps potentially is another way you can really kind of start to prepare for the upturn. So in summary, really look at your organizational needs from project management to resource management. Make sure, the resource module can be extremely powerful here. And we've shown a lot of different examples of that. And that gives you that great visibility. So, please, take advantage of those tools inside the system. Process is just as important as tools. So please make sure that you're focusing on the process as well as the tool itself, as the process will allow you to grow. Tool use only will only get you so far. And then make sure you're paying, run the reports, build the dashboards, share the data across all the different parts of the organization where it's applicable, and use that data to be able to take action and make decisions, and you'll be better off. So again, I want to thank everyone for joining today. I'm sure if you're here, you know who we are and what we're passionate about. We're passionate about professional services. We're passionate about our open air customer base. So we love sharing information with you, and we appreciate following us on our website. If you're interested in our newsletter, please go to our website. You can get our newsletter. It'll give you some great information each month. We also tweet tips and tricks from an open air perspective almost on a daily, weekly basis. So if you're following us on Twitter, and we also have a LinkedIn group that you're welcome to join, and you can ask questions and have your peers answer. So with that, I will stop the recording.